Hello, welcome to our quick follow-up video. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. We have to remember that our major course goal in this class is to complete the data mining project where you develop a research question from existing data, analyze it, and write it up for publication in an undergraduate journal. Now, at the end of our passion-driven statistics video, they talked about some possible data sets that you could use for this project. However, in our class, I'm going to limit our choices of data sets to a few specific data sets that are both interesting and relevant to our fields. To find these data sets, I ask that you go to worldclass.edu, log into our course site like I am now, click the content, and look at the section titled Datasets and Codebooks for the Data Mining Project. Once there, you'll notice there are 7 different data sets. Let me review those for you right now. I would like you to know that your goal for today is to rank these data sets from most to least interesting. That's your job. You want to rank these from most to least interesting. What we're trying to do is find a data set that you will enjoy working with, that you will love working with, that will ask questions that you care about. All that stuff is important. But let's talk about these 7 options. The first option right here, and I'm not going to click into these options. Every single data file, I have an overview that describes things. You can click there. It can give you basically an overview of the data set and so forth. Some of them are more intense than others because some of these data files are more complicated than others. Okay, so I'm clicking back here. Our first data set is Ad Health. Ad Health is an amazingly rich longitudinal data set that began looking at adolescents and kept looking at them. The adolescents in the study are now my age. There are over 8,000 variables that examine everything. This is the perfect biopsychosocial data set. It has biological markers, social aspects. It has measures of psychological functioning as well. So I think it's a really cool data set. Ad Health is an extremely large data set. It has its own website, so you can go to that website and start checking this out for yourself. And it has a searchable codebook that will come in handy, but you can also look at codebooks in the data themselves. I've downloaded the data for you right here. There are some data files for you. The data has multiple waves of the same participants. However, the data files weren't combined. So I combined as many of the waves as I could without obtaining errors, but I still provide you with all the data. So this file right here has all the original data plus my merged data file. And this one right here just is the pure data file that I downloaded from the Ad Health website. So all your data is right here on D2L. Very useful. There are codebooks in the data, but you also have this very useful searchable codebook. Now, what you can do is you can look at your data file and look up a specific variable to figure out what it is. Or you can actually type in sort of keywords and see if you have any variables in the data file that measure that. For example, you might be interested in depression. You could put that in the search and see if you can find a measure of depression, which I think you can. Now that's our first data set to choose from. Our second data set is I'm biased. It's it's my favorite. It's the Connecticut traffic stop data set. The collection of this data is designed by the Connecticut government to track and attempt to reduce racial bias in policing. The data set is really unique in that it includes all sorts of data, interesting data relevant to policing that you simply can't get anywhere else. It is literally a database of every traffic stop in Connecticut. There's going to be a few that they missed, but the idea is that every traffic stop in the state of Connecticut is legally bound to go through this actual process. Accessing the data, the codebook and the data is quite easy. I've downloaded the whole state data files for you. That is, over the course of the last, I think they have 6 years of data on there. I've downloaded all that data for you here in the data files section, right? You can see all the data there. I'm going to click back out of the data file section. And it shot me somewhere I didn't expect to go. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my codebook section. Sorry for that. Anyways, has all the data files in there. You can get a codebook for 2014 if you want help with that. So but essentially in the data files, you have code books for each data file. So it's not the end of the world. What I do want to point out is that with the data that on their website, if you go to the actual project homepage, you can download data for individual cities. So you may have questions like, do small cities police differently than big cities? And you can start to look at that data by looking at the city level data. So that's our traffic stop data. I'm interested in that because I am interested in racial bias in policing as a research question. So I do want to look into that and learn some more. The next data file is a general social survey. This is a survey that's been basically in continuous use since the 70s. It tackles nearly every social issue that we as a nation find important. I didn't download the 40 years of data, and you don't have to either. However, you will have to choose what years of data you want to explore in this massive data set that's quite easy to access, that measures Americans' opinions on things like guns, drugs, marriage, all sorts of things. So it's a really interesting social opinion data set. The financial well-being study is an effort of the US government to examine what leads to financial stability and success in Americans. This data set is mostly focused on financial beliefs, like the questions are about what do you believe financially, savings, things like that. But you will find some psychologically relevant measures as well in this data set. What I love about this data file is that it's super simple and easy to access. You can easily access the data in the codebook right here on D2L, data file codebook. And, it's just super, super easy to use. But ultimately, if you're interested in financial well-being and financial attitudes, this is a data set you might find interesting. Now, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health is probably one of my second favorite data set in this data set, or in this set of data sets. This data set literally asks people about every known drug known to humans, measures so many health-related conditions like physical health conditions and mental health conditions, has a very extensive section on mental health. I have uploaded the 2019 data file and codebook directly to our course site. There are other data out there, but I don't think you need to use them. If you want to, you can explore. I'm okay with some exploring here. But this is our National Survey on Drug Use and Health that you get to choose from. Now, the National Survey on Energy and Environment probably sounds a little boring, but the questions are essentially beliefs and behaviors about climate change with some numerous random variables like political decision making thrown in for fun. These codebooks are in the data downloads. I have the entire data file in the codebooks in a zip file. You can download all the data right here, and you have access to 10 years of data in these files. Each year has its own folder. Each year has its own codebook. You're going to have to download it to explore the questions in there a little bit more. But ultimately, the National Survey on Energy and the Environment is quite interesting. I'm checking in the overview for one thing. Yep, there is... I will worry about that later. Okay. So our final data set is, and I'm going to click back to datasets and codebooks. You can see it kind of like has different modules. You've used D2L before. But the final data set is a bit peculiar. Open science is this really important process of making the data files available for others to use. While there are many options for neuroscientists in this existing set, AdHealth has numerous biological markers, for example, and the Drug Use and Health Survey are clearly going to be of interest to more medically focused neuroscientists. I wanted a hardcore neuroscience data set. And this is incredibly difficult to find a data file that doesn't require a master's degree in computer programming, because most of the public data sets are fMRI data and require advanced processing of the data. So keep that in mind for when you finish this class and you have dreams of publishing brain data. However, I found this specific data file that looks at cannabis use and numerous biological and brain markers. I have to admit that I'm not the expert in neuroscience, But the data file comes with very interesting measures of brain and biology that if you're a neuroscientist, you will understand. The data file is simply an Excel file. There is no code book, but the data come from a published paper, so you should be able to track down exactly what the data mean. And if you can't, you can always email the authors. So here's the overview. Here's the paper, and the data file will be there. It's not there right now, but it will be there in the not too distant future. Anyways, these are our data files. I want you to think about them. I want you to rank them. Go ahead, read the overviews, go through these. I want you to start narrowing down your choices of data files. You'll notice that I didn't include all the data sets that the passion-driven statistics video talked about, because some of the data sets we couldn't access. They just didn't exist anymore, or they were really difficult to access. Like the Gapminder data is pretty difficult to work with. And some just aren't neuropsych relevant, and we're a neuropsych relevant stats class, so I had to cut, despite me wanting to keep it, the Mars crater study. I really thought that was cool, but we got to cut it. So you're probably asking, what do you do now? For today, your job is simple. Eliminate 2 data sets that you have no interest in, and rank the rest. That's it. For the course, right, that's your homework for today. But for the course, you're going to need to choose a final data set, develop a research question, choose research variables, analyze your data, and write up your data for publication in an undergraduate research journal. You'll need to choose a preliminary data file for the next few lectures to do some simple homework tasks. So, that first one you choose, you're going to be working with for just a few more lectures, or the rest of the class if you choose. However, once I get into the stats, I'm going to switch over to the Connecticut data to practice our statistical analyses. Then once we get through all the statistical analyses at midterms, you will have to finalize your data files, your data set, which one you're using, and complete the project. So just for review, homework for today, your job is to eliminate 2 data files that you are not interested in and rank the rest. A D2L quiz is set up for you to do this before class. Finally realize that the course has 3 phases. Phase 1 is what we're in now. This is orientation. You're just starting to think about your final project. You're starting to look at data. You're starting to learn the bases of processing data. We're kind of putting our toes in the water of data analysis. Phase 2 is stats, and more stats, where I will use the Connecticut data. I think if it's not great, I might switch to demonstrate proper statistical technique and teach you how to analyze data properly for different scenarios. And then at midterms, phase 3 begins, which is complete your data mining project, which is analyze our data. We're going to present our data to each other, and we're going to write this data up for hopeful publication in an undergraduate research journal. More information on this is coming. I wanted to give you the overview, but that's it. These are your data files. Your job is to look at them, rank them, get rid of 2.